Hello, everyone! Welcome back, my absolute favorite 7th standard students. I'm so excited to see you here for this special masterclass explainer. We are diving deep into social science today. I know you've got exams just around the corner, and honestly, my main goal today is to make sure you are 100% prepared for Chapter 4, The Regional Kingdoms Part 2. Let's do this! All right, class, settle in. Today is all about mastering these regional kingdoms, so you can just breeze through those exams. So do me a favor, grab your notebooks, grab a pen, and really tune in. Everything we're talking about today is absolute gold for your tests. We're going to make all this history super easy to remember, I promise. So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the rise of regional kingdoms, then travel through the kingdoms of the north, followed by the western and central kingdoms. After that, we hit the heavy hitter, the Great Vijayanagara Empire. And finally, if you stay focused, we'll wrap up with a really fun story, the tale of Tenali Rama. Okay, let's set the stage with part 1, the rise of regional kingdoms and the fall of the Delhi Sultans. We really have to look at Delhi to understand what happened everywhere else. It's a classic case of cause and effect, right? During the later years of the Delhi Sultans, their central power just started slipping. Think of it kind of like a giant umbrella slowly folding up. As the sultans lost their grip, all those smaller provinces under them, well, they saw a golden opportunity and grabbed it. They broke away, declared independence, and bam, we get the rise of incredibly powerful regional kingdoms, especially the Vijayanaga and Bahmani kingdoms down south. Moving right along to Section 2, the kingdoms of the north, stretching from Kashmir all the way to Bengal. Keep your pens handy, guys, because examiners love pulling short answer questions from here. Picture a 15th century map of India in your head. Getting the geography right actually helps lock in the facts. Way up north, you've got Kashmir, coming down through Delhi, Marwar, Mewar, Sindh, Gujarat, Malwa, and Khandesh. Then, sweeping over to the east, we hit Jaunpur and Bengal, and forming the massive southern base are the Bahmani and Vijayanaga territories. And wrap all that up with the Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and Indian Ocean on the coasts. Keep that picture in your mind. Now, for the exams, you absolutely have to know who ruled where. Let's break it down. Starting up in Kashmir, back in the 14th century, Shah Mir started a Muslim dynasty. But the VIP here is Zayn al-Abidin. His nickname was Bud Shah. Jot this down, star it, highlight it. He is known as the Akbar of Kashmir because he was so tolerant and fiercely supported arts and agriculture. Next up, Marwar, ruled by the Rathors. Maharaja Jodha is your key name there. He founded Jodhpur and built that stunning Mehrangarh fort. Then there's Mewar, ruled by the mighty Sasojia Rajputs like Rana Hamir and Rana Kumbha, but the most famous king, Rana Sanga. Write down this date, 1527. That is when Babur defeated Rana Sanga in the famous Battle of Kanwa. All right, continuing our tour, let's hit Jaunpur and Bengal. For Jaunpur, memorize the name Malik Sarwar. He was a governor who was super strategic. When Timur invaded in 1398 and caused total chaos, Sarwar used that distraction to declare independence and kick off the Sharki dynasty, though Bahul Lodi did conquer it later in 1484. Then over in Bengal, you had the Ilyas Shahi and Hussein Shahi sultans in the 14th and 15th centuries. Bengal's real superpower? Trade. It was a massive commercial hub, and since it was so incredibly far from Delhi, the governors there were constantly revolting until the Mughals finally took over in the 16th century. You guys are doing fantastic. Let's shift our map tour to Section 3, the Western and Central Kingdoms. We're talking Malwa, Gujarat, and Khandesh. Focus on the founders here. These are totally classic fill-in-the-blank exam questions. In Malwa, Dilawar Khan founded the kingdom in 1401, although Hushang Shah ended up being its most powerful ruler. Over in Gujarat, Muzaffar Shah started their independent kingdom in the 15th century, which Akbar eventually annexed. And for Khandesh, your guy is Raja Ahmed, also known as Malik Raja. He was their very first independent ruler. His successor, Nasir Khan, went on to build the important town of Burhanpur. Okay, quick fun fact to help you remember Gujarat's rulers. One of their famous kings, Mahmud Shah Begara, loved food so much that he literally had plates of meat patties placed on both sides of his bed every single night. You know, just in case he woke up wanting a midnight snack. You definitely won't forget him on the exam now, right? All right, shake it out, take a deep breath, because we are moving into Section 4, the Great Vijayanagara Empire, the Southern Giant. I'm telling you right now, this is long essay question territory, so stay with me. Let's trace how this massive empire even started. It was founded by two brothers, Harihara and Bukurai.
Now, originally, they were just feudatories under the Kakatiyas of Warangal. When the Kakatiyas fell, the brothers moved to Kampili. Then they actually got captured by the Tugluks and were sent down south with orders to crush local rebellions. But in a massive plot twist, they rebelled against Muhammad bin Tughlaq themselves. They declared independence and built Vijayanagar, which means the City of Victory, in 1336. Harihara ruled for 20 years, Bukka took over until 1377, and together they completely defeated the Hoysala ruler of Mysore and the king of Madurai. Just an incredible rise to power.
This kingdom lasted a massive 230 years, and their kings took the title of Rayas. There are 3 main dynasties you need to know, and I want you to literally say them out loud with me right now to lock them in. The Sangama dynasty, the Saluva dynasty, and the Tuluva dynasty. Getting that timeline straight in your head really shows just how long they dominated South India. And that brings us to the absolute legend, Krishnadeva Raya. He was, hands down, the greatest ruler of the Vijayanagar Empire. Under his rule, the empire covered all of South India. He defeated the Bahmani Sultan, took down the king of Odisha, but his real jackpot was annexing the right shore Doab. That's a super fertile strip of land between the Krishna and Tungabhadra rivers. He was brilliant at trade, too, setting up links with the Portuguese, the English, and the Dutch. On top of all that, he was a massive patron of the arts. He had a famous court of 8 brilliant poets known as the Ashtadigajas, which translates to the 8 elephants. Now, speaking of fertile land and farming, Krishnadeva Raya was huge on agriculture. He built tanks, dams, canals, the whole works. Which actually brings up a great recall question straight from your textbooks. Let's do a quick pop quiz. Do you remember the name of the Delhi Sultan who also strongly encouraged irrigation? I'll give you a second to think. Making those connections back to your earlier chapters is exactly what gets you the top marks. So the main takeaway here is that the Vijayanagar Empire was staggeringly wealthy. Foreign travelers like Niccolo Conti, Abdur Razak, and Domingo Paez visited and wrote about their jaw-dropping capital city, Hampi. Here's a great exam fact. Hampi, in modern-day Karnataka, is actually the world's second largest World Heritage Site today. They funded all this through international trade and a really smart tax system based on land fertility, property, and even marriage. But unfortunately, it didn't last forever. After Krishnadeva Raya passed away, the empire weakened. The neighboring Deccan kingdoms eventually teamed up and tragically defeated Vijayanagara in 1565 at the Battle of Talikota. Okay, you guys have been crushing these dates and battles. You've earned a brain break. Let's jump into Section 5, the tale of Tenali Rama. We're going to find out what happens when robbers turn into gardeners. So the story goes that 2 notorious robbers were in prison, begging King Krishnadeva Raya to let them go, swearing they'd never steal again. The king, who was incredibly sharp, decides to test them. He says, if you can manage to steal the jewelry from Tenali Rama's house tonight without getting caught, I'll set you free. The robbers jumped at the chance. They were released for the night, snuck straight into Tenali's garden, and hid behind a bush, waiting for their moment. But Tenali Rama, one of those famous 8 poets, was a genius. He was washing his feet before dinner and totally spotted them lurking in the bushes. But he doesn't panic. Instead, he yells out to his wife, super loudly, "Hey, I hear thieves are roaming the streets at night these days. Let's put all our jewelry into a bundle and throw it down the well. They'll never guess we hid it there." He then quietly wraps a bunch of heavy bricks in a sari, marches out, and drops it into the well with a massive splash. Meanwhile, his real valuables are perfectly safe inside. The trap is set. The thieves wait for him to go to sleep, and one climbs down into the well. But he's feeling around in the dark and can't find the bundle. So the 2 of them decide they just have to empty the entire well. What they didn't know was that Tenali had secretly dug little channels leading from the well directly to his thirsty garden plants. So these thieves spend the entire night absolutely exhausting themselves, hauling up bucket after bucket of water. Finally, as the sun comes up, they reach the bottom, grab the heavy bundle, tear it open, and find bricks. Just as they turn to run, Tenali steps out onto his porch and yells, "Hey, thank you so much for watering my plants. There are still a few dry ones over there. Mind drying a little more water for them?" The thieves bolted for their lives, straight back to the prison. King Krishnadeva Raya was so impressed by Tenali's quick thinking. And on that fun note, my wonderful 7th standard students, we've reached the end of our masterclass explainer. You did incredible work today. You stayed focused, and you are now armed with every date, name, and story you need to totally ace your exam on the regional kingdoms. Just remember, repetition is the secret to a great grade. Play this lesson back,
Listen to my teachings again and again whenever you need a quick revision. It is absolutely your best tool for success.
I'm going to leave you with one final thought as you close your notebooks today. Out of all the powerful kingdoms we just explored, which one fascinates you the most? And what is your personal strategy going to be for remembering its founder on exam day? Think on that, visualize the history, and you are going to be absolutely unstoppable. Happy studying, and I'll catch you in our next class.
Hey everyone, welcome back to class. I am so excited to be your teacher today because we're diving into a masterclass explainer that's going to have you 100% ready for that 7th standard social science exam. You know, I hear all the time that history is just a boring list of names and dates. No way. It's actually full of intense drama, brilliant strategies, and spectacular empires. We're going to break it all down so smoothly today that by the end of this, you'll literally be teaching it to your friends. So get your notebooks ready, sit up straight, and let's jump right in.
Okay, let's just quickly check our agenda for today. We're going to cover the rise of these regional kingdoms, deep dive into the mighty Bahmani kingdom, look at their administration and eventual fall, explore the glorious Vijayanagara Empire, run through a few other regional powers you gotta know, and wrap it all up with a quick look at what was happening in the rest of the world.
Section 1, the rise of regional kingdoms. Let's set the stage for how this entire historical drama kicked off.
So here's a massive exam question you will almost certainly see. Why did these new regional kingdoms just suddenly pop up in the 14th century? Well, if you remember nothing else, remember this phrase, power vacuum. The mighty Delhi sultans started getting weak during the second half of their rule. And honestly, when the boss at the top loses control, what do the people underneath do? The provinces that used to answer to the sultan just saw their golden opportunity. They rebelled, declared their independence, and set up their own kingdoms. It was basically a massive domino effect across India.
Make sure you jot down these dates, okay? This timeline perfectly paints the picture of the 14th and 15th centuries. Look how fast things shifted. In just a little over 10 years, two massive super empires were born, the Vijayanagara Empire in 1336 and the Bahmani Kingdom in 1347. You'll also spot Timur's invasion in 1398, which, by the way, caused even more chaos for the Delhi Sultans. Keep this timeline in the back of your mind. It's the absolute anchor for everything we're talking about today.
Section 2, the mighty Bahmani Kingdom. Let's look at the fascinating story behind our first giant superpower.
The founding story here is actually pretty incredible. It was started in 1347 by a guy who had risen up working for a man named Gangu, which is exactly why he became famous as Hassan Gangu. But when he finally became king, he leveled up and took the grand title of Ala ud-Din Bahman Shah, kicking off the Bahmani dynasty. And class, this wasn't just some passing phase. This kingdom ruled for a whopping 180 years, right up until 1527. At their absolute peak, they controlled the entire northern Deccan, stretching all the way down to the river Krishna. Oh, an exam tip. They started out ruling from Gulbarga, but later shifted their capital to Bidar. Do not forget that capital shift.
Now, you absolutely have to know these two heavyweights for your test. First, Firoz Shah Bahmani. This guy was a powerhouse, ruling from 1397 to 1422. He defeated the Gond king Narsingh Rai and even managed to temporarily snatch the Raichur Doab from Vijayanagar. But he wasn't just a tough warrior, he was an absolute genius with languages. We're talking fluent in Persian, Arabic, Turkish, Telugu, Kannada, and Marathi. He loved science and poetry and totally transformed the Deccan into this amazing cultural hub. Then, on the other side, we have Mahmud Gawan. Now, Gawan wasn't actually a king. He was a Persian who settled in the Deccan and became the wazir, or prime minister. But for 18 years, he was the one pulling the strings, making the kingdom incredibly strong. He was a master of math and literature, pushed the growth of Urdu, and built this breathtaking madrasa in Bidar. It wasn't just a tiny local school, it pulled in students from all over India and abroad, and housed a library with over 3,000 manuscripts. All right, Section 3, Bahmani Administration and Fall. Let's peel back the curtain on how they actually ran this massive empire day to day, and why it all eventually came crashing down. Major exam alert right here. Your teachers love asking you to compare Bahmani officials to our government today. So, the whole thing was headed by the wazir or vakil. Under him, you had specialized heads. The waziri Ashraf handled foreign affairs. Think about it. That is exactly like our modern Ministry of External Affairs. Then you had the Sadar-e-Jahan who managed religion and justice. Sounds familiar, right? That perfectly matches our modern Ministry of Law and Justice. It just goes to show you, history isn't just old, dusty facts. It's the literal blueprint for how we run things right now. Okay, so how do you manage all that land? You divide it up.
The Bahmanwani word for province is Taras. Write Taraf down right now. Each of these Tarafs was run by a governor called an Amir or Tarafdar. But get this, the king didn't just write them a paycheck. Instead, they were paid through jagirs, which are land grants. In return for the land, these governors had to keep their own armies ready and supply the king with soldiers and gear whenever a war broke out.
But here is where the drama really kicks in, class. This is a perfect example of how internal fighting will absolutely destroy an empire. The royal court was split into two totally bitter, scheming factions. On one side, you have the Deccanis, who were the local nobles. On the other side, the Pardesi nobles, who had come in from Iran, Turkey, Arabia, and Central Asia. The locals basically looked at the Pardesis as outsiders, and the two sides were just constantly plotting against each other. Remember our brilliant Prime Minister Mahmud Gawan? Well, he was a Pardesi, and despite everything he did for the kingdom, he couldn't stop the hate. The Deccani nobles hatched this totally vicious conspiracy against him, and, tragically, got him executed in 1481.
So, with great leaders like Gawan out of the picture, the later kings were just too weak. And what did we say happens when the boss is weak? The governors break away. By 1527, the whole mighty Bahmani kingdom shattered into 5 independent sultanates. You really need to commit this list to memory for the exam. Ahmadnagar was ruled by the Nizam Shahis, Bijapur by the Adil Shahis, Golconda by the Kut Shahis, Berar by the Imad Shahis, and Bidar by the Barid Shahis. Seriously, take a mental snapshot of this right now. It'll definitely come up.
Section 4, the glorious Vijayanaga Empire. We are heading down south now to check out the famous city of Victory.
The founding of Vijayanagar is such a classic rebellion story. It was started in 1336 by 2 brothers, Harihara and Buka Rai. Now, they were originally just feudatories working for the Kakatiyas of Warangal, but spotting their chance, they totally rebelled against the Delhi Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq, declared themselves independent, and built this magnificent capital. From 1336 to 1565, the empire was ruled by 3 major dynasties, the Sangama, the Saluva, and the Tuluva. Speaking of the Tuluva dynasty, we absolutely have to talk about their greatest ruler, Krishnadeva Raya. This guy was a legend. Under his rule, the empire practically swallowed up the entire southern peninsula. He was this brilliant military commander who crushed the Bahmana Sultan, defeated the king of Odisha, and took over the super-fertile Rakshur Doab. But he wasn't just about war. He was a total economic genius, too. He knew wealth came from both the land and trade, so he ordered the building of these massive tanks, dams, and canals to help farmers irrigate their crops. Plus, he actively built up trade links with the Portuguese, the English, and the Dutch. He basically made the empire incredibly rich.
So, to govern all of South India efficiently, Krishnadeva Raya and his ministers set up this incredibly smart, step-by-step administrative system. The whole empire was sliced into large provinces called mandalams, which were each headed by a governor. Those were broken down into districts called nadus, then sub-districts called stalas, and right down at the bottom, local villages known as gramas. It's just a perfect, logical trickle-down system. Now, my favorite thing about Krishnadeva Raya's court was the sheer wit of the people there, especially this guy you've probably heard of, Tenali Rama. The stories about him are legendary. Like, one night, Tenali Rama spots robbers hiding in his garden. Instead of freaking out, he shouts to his wife, "I am hiding my jewelry in the well," and he drops this super heavy bundle of bricks right into the water. The robbers heard it, and they spent the entire night exhausted, drawing water out of the well trying to get this fake treasure. And by doing that, they perfectly irrigated Tenali Rama's entire garden for free. It is such a funny story, but it perfectly shows off the sharp, clever intelligence that was so celebrated in Vijayanagar. Section 5. Other Indian Regional Powers. Okay, class, let's do a rapid-fire review of the other regional kingdoms you've got to know to score full marks. Way up north in the 14th century, Shah Mir started a Muslim dynasty in Kashmir. But the main ruler you need to circle in your notes is Zain-ul-Abidin. People loved him and called him Bud Shah. He actually earned this amazing title, the Akbar of Kashmir. Why? Because just like the famous Mughal Emperor Akbar who came later on, he practiced really strict religious tolerance. He funded education, pushed for better agriculture, and massively supported new arts and crafts. All right, let's hit these other ones lightning fast. Over in Mewar, you had the Sisodia Rajputs. Their standout ruler was Rana Sanga, who made them super strong by defeating the ruler of Malwa, though Babur eventually defeated him. Then in Marwar, ruled by the Rathors, you gotta remember Maharaja Jodha. He founded Jodhpur and built the absolutely stunning Mehrangarh fort. Moving to Jaunpur, a smart governor named Malik Sarwar used the chaos of Timur's 1398 invasion to declare independence and kick off the Sharki dynasty. And finally, Raja Ahmad, also known as Malik Raja, became the first independent ruler of Khandesh. Make sure you've got those matched up in your head. Section 6. Meanwhile, in the world. To wrap up today's explainer, let's take a quick, surprising trip across the ocean to see what was happening in the Americas at this exact same time.
It is so cool to think about. While our Indian empires were busy building dams and these massive stone tanks for irrigation, the magnificent Aztec and Inca empires were thriving in the Americas. The Aztecs in Central America came up with this unbelievable agricultural invention called chinampas. These weren't literally floating fields. I'm not kidding. They would pile up aquatic weeds, mud, and whatever they could find to create these long, rectangular farm plots right on the water to grow their crops. It just proves that brilliant human ingenuity was sparking all over the planet at the exact same time.
All right, class. As we wrap up, I want you to really think about this question tonight. If the Delhi Sultanate had just stayed strong and never weakened, would we ever have seen the rise of Vijayanagar? Would we have ever known the genius of Mahmud Gawan or laughed at the wit of Tenali Rama? History is completely driven by cause and effect. You all did a fantastic job today. You've got the facts, the stories, and the vocab you need to totally crush your social science exam. Remember, you can always come back and listen to this explainer anytime you need a refresher before the test. Keep studying hard, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next class.